everybody, and welcome to GameGuru live broadcast, and welcome to the last Saturday of the month of June. And I've got a couple of things I'd like to show you, and before I get to show you, I'm going to answer a few pre-questions that were sent to me ahead of the broadcast. And just to sort of start the hour, I always ask people to, if they wish, send in some showcases of what they've been working on. I'll usually throw that into the intro section as well. I didn't get sent something directly, but something happened that was really cool, so it's going into the demo section. But the majority of this broadcast will be Q&A, so get your questions ready. Put a question mark in at the end, and then we'll answer them one at a time in chronological order until either we run out of questions or we run out of time. But I just want to take the start of this broadcast to talk about a few things that struck my attention. One that's not even on my list, but I was just browsing Discord earlier today, and I'm really impressed with the quantity of the work in progress entries in the WIP section on the GameGuru Max Discord channel. Really excited to see that one grow. And for the longest time it was like 4 or 5 projects, but now we're over 20 and growing. And I've been seeing work in progress discussed in other parts of the Discord channels. Some really excellent projects now coming through, so I'm really pleased to be able to provide a GameGuru Max experience that is fast and bug-free and stable and all the things that you would want when you finally finish a game and put it on Steam to sell. So yes, there were 3 pre-questions that were sent to me. I won't read them verbatim, but the first question was a request to summarise what happened in Q2. And my summary will be very, very brief. Generally, that's April, May and June. The bottom line, the conclusion of those 3 months was work on the areas of performance and stability. Those were the 2 big things that we wanted to nail, because there was, after all of the features that were added, there was a lot of opportunity for performance improvements, and so we've taken the opportunity to do that. You could even say that performance was also a big feature of the first 3 months in Q1, but there was a lot more performance to do, and we're pretty happy with that. In large part thanks to Preben, who carried on when I stopped on performance work. Preben carried on and made it even faster. So you should end up with a pretty decent speed for your games now. And also stability, making sure that all of those last remaining little niggles that are kind of acting as a roadblock from you finishing your projects, wanted to make sure that those were ironed out and out of the way. The second of the 3 pre-questions was, did it meet expectations from what we wanted to get out of Q2 and what actually happened? The answer to that is yes, and then some. I didn't think we'd get as much performance or as much stability as quickly as we did, and lots of other things, little functional improvements and tweaks and additions that I also didn't expect. So yeah, pretty happy with how Q2 actually turned out. And the third question, you could probably anticipate this, is what is the plan for Q3? So that's July, August and September. As I've said, I'm pretty happy with performance now. So if you looked at the issues board on GitHub, you'll notice there are now 2 pages of bugs. It's a lot less than the hundreds and hundreds of bugs that we had this time last year. But I don't like that many bugs floating around. So for the Q3, it will be about keeping that bug count low. And obviously some bugs are bigger than others, some are more disruptive than others, but generally as a philosophy, just to keep that bug count as small as possible, as a natural knock-on effect that everyone doesn't have to hit these problems and can get on with inventing and creating and iterating their games. So those are the pre-questions. Expect another set of pre-questions next month, and if you do have questions that you would like to answer even before the live chat start, feel free to email or discuss them on Discord to see if answers are already available. And if there isn't any forthcoming answer from the Discord channel, that's probably a good question to ask me before the broadcast starts. So without further ado, I'm going to check my chat, because if I'm doing all this and no one can hear me, it will be much disappointing. So time to bust out the concert speakers so I can hear Lee. Yes, sorry about that. I had turned down the intro music, so hopefully my audio is not too bad. But I have got my microphone cranked up to 100%. Not sure what else I can do. Apart from shout. Okay, so seems like disco, the way to go. I think that's very small. Can hear the audio. Thank you very much, Mike Price. I was worried because no one was talking about what I was talking about on the chat. So maybe everyone's waiting for me to speak. But 8 minutes of silence, maybe someone would have concluded that we had more technical difficulties like we did 2 broadcasts ago. So I'll just show you the things that I'm quite interested in sharing today. And the first one was an addition. In fact, I'll probably just go straight into this. And I'll talk about what this project is and why it's called Remote Game. But the first thing I'd like to point out, and you may not have noticed it, is the addition of a LOD generator light in the software now. It's in the dev test, so you probably won't see the version I'm running. We're still doing tests. As soon as it's good enough, it goes onto the EXP build and then everyone can have access to it. And the thing that you can look out for is when you go into the object library and then go into preview, you've now got this new button, LOD Generator Lite. This is entirely written by a third-party developer, Preben, who has a Patreon page where he supports his efforts via that Patreon scheme, and he created something called LOD Generator. And there was a little confusion as to why everyone didn't get the LOD Generator from TGC, because TGC didn't write it, doesn't own it. But there was enough sort of interest that, well, couldn't we have like some kind of LOD, because the LOD is built into the engine, but the only way you could have generated a LOD is to use the LOD generator, and thus LOD Generator Lite was born, which is accessed in this way. So obviously it's light, so there's the full version and this is the light version, but the light version will let you set up your LODs and the kind of polygon count you're looking for, let you optimize to that and then save that out. And when you save it out, it updates the local library that you're in, and then you instantly get that object with LOD. So that's been added recently, and that should take care of all your lodding needs. It does it one at a time. In the full version, you can like batch LOD, so you can give it a load of objects in one go. Or even better, you could give it a level, and it will literally LOD level of detail every single object in that particular level. So I wanted to point that out because it isn't obvious. The software is getting quite large now, and you may not have found that button for months. So I wanted to point that out right away, so you know it exists and you know the power of it. And for anyone who doesn't know what LOD is or level of detail, if an object has LOD, it has the ability to render with fewer polygons the further it is away from the camera, which speeds up your game, so you get a higher FPS. That's basically what it is. But let me introduce you to this. If I go back out one, Remote Game. Why is it called Remote Game? Because this is the new project system. It's not finished yet, which is why it's still in dev test, but the new project system allows you to change the location of a project, so you could put it somewhere. I'm putting it in Dropbox. I've probably mentioned this in the last broadcast as well. And that part is done, or it's just in the final testing, and the next, sort of we call the part B of the remote project system, is the ability to have objects in there as well. So in addition to things like your storyboard layouts and all the rest of it, if you, for example, if I go into the add new object and then select, I don't know, maybe this fish, like that, boom. So this fish used to exist in the stock folder. So when you get GameGuru Max, you get thousands and thousands of objects, and they all are like a common library area. When you're using your remote project, it actually copies that object into your remote project folder, completely separating it from the stock collection. Also protecting your project if, for example, GameGuru Max received an update which changed that object, it may mess up your game project. Or you've taken the object and you wanted to modify it, change its texture or something in the files themselves. You're doing that in the remote project folder, and it thus keeps it nice and separate. An example, which I've just got up here, as you can see, I've got this project that you're looking at now in Dropbox my Max Projects, remote game, files, and you can notice in files all these things. So when you add an object, not only does it add the FPE, which is the file that describes an object, it also includes the model data, the textures. If it uses sound, it copies over the audio files. If it uses a script, it copies over the script. The idea is it's a completely isolated set of files just for your project. And the beauty of that, of course, is you could zip up remote game and make a backup of everything you've got. So if you're importing models for your own custom stuff, you can drop your own custom files in here, directly into here. Keeps it nice and separate from the GameGuru Max's stock asset library, and eventually this will be a really great sort of stepping stone for cleaner standalone executables. Because right now when you save a standalone executable, sometimes it includes files you don't necessarily using. With the new remote project system, you can vet every single file that's in your project, getting rid of stuff that you don't use anymore, or you used to do but you don't want anymore, or it's an old version. And so you can delete all those files, and then the save standalone, eventually, this will be like part C of the new project system, basically scrapes your project folder for files and copies those into your standalone executable. So it's a much cleaner, nicer, dare I say it, a more professional way to start a new game project. By having full control of your files, you know where they all are. Any updates that come through won't change your game project unless you want it to. So as I said, it's work in progress. We're about more than halfway along, but as we continue to test it, things occur, and we might make small functional additions just to make it even cooler. So that's the new project system, and I think after the dev testing is completed on the object stuff, and we've had a few people who've been cherry-picked to battle test it, then we'll upgrade it to the EXP build so everyone can have a play. And then if it passes that series of tests, then eventually it will go into probably the third quarter update, which I think would be March, April, May, June, July, August, September. So around September time, probably everyone will have played it by then, but it will become part of the official version. But these plans are subject to change. It depends how desperate everyone wants the new project system released into the wild. Another feature, again, I hold my hands up, I had absolutely nothing to do with this, but I've been looking at it for quite a while, and it's a really cool feature, is, in fact, I'm going to run this so I can do the thing, but I'm going to have to run away from that guy. He's going to try and chop me up. No, and he stops because his nav mesh only extends out a certain amount. I think I was reading Discord, and there was something like, why can't we have a nav mesh that covers the entire universe? That's not why you have a nav mesh. You actually only have a nav mesh where you actually want characters to roam, and I don't want that guy roaming over to that mountain over there. So the cool new feature I wanted to introduce in graphics and performance, if you go all the way to the bottom, look at this unassuming little fellow, FSR. Now off the top of my head I can't tell you what FSR means, but basically it's called in the technical parlance upscaling. So basically you can render to a smaller render target and then upscale it to your monitor screen, again boosting your performance, which is why it's in graphics and performance settings. It's been enabled in the dev test, and as soon as it goes into the EXP everyone can play with it. Your mileage may vary based on your hardware, your graphics card, other factors. Some may see no improvement, some people might see massive improvement. As you can see, you've got a drop down where you can choose go for ultra quality, balanced, or performance. So you can imagine the scale there and what you might choose. But performance work over the last couple of months has been so good, you may not need FSR. But if you do need that extra boost and you've tried everything else and just switched everything off, then FSR is for you. So that's again in testing, and we'll be able to release it at some point in the future. Now here's the thing I actually wanted to show you. Again, as I said, in addition to the performance and stability work, every now and again there's a good enough reason to do a little bit of functionality additions. And I think everyone agrees that the combat system, both the gunplay and the melee combat system, could do with improvement. And I was waiting for, really, an artist to come along who has a vested interest in improving those two things. I don't think we have a weapons DLC yet, but we do have a number of melee weapon DLCs, and so improvements to the melee system is what happened first. And let me just show you it in practice so you know what I'm talking about. This is from our good friend Mark Blosser, our Bond1 to everyone on the forums. So basically this is a character I've made in the character creator. He has a long sword and he's giving me a good bashing, and he'll keep doing that until I run out of health, which is fine. It's normal. So there you go. So that's basically me being pummeled, and usually I can fight back with my swings like so. But now what I can do is block. So I time it, and when you succeed in blocking, see, for example, I blocked too soon then, so I managed to get through my guard. So watch this. There you go. And see how he's stunned? Because he's stunned for that second where you had a successful block, you get extra time to go in for the chop. And we were so impressed with that, this idea that now you have to time between hitting, defending, backing off. The idea is we're going to extend it a little further. So anytime there's sort of an interaction where it feels a bit lackluster, like they feel like there isn't a proper connection or a bash, we're going to introduce that. A DLC was released recently. It was the medieval melee weapons, of which you've just seen the longsword, old style longsword. And we're adding the animations to all of those weapons as a sort of a test. And we're going to keep playing around with it, and Mark's cooperating to actually add the extra animations where needed, so that when you run up, you have some basic but decent melee combat. So you can block, they can block, you can fail to block, and they can fail to block. And then when you hit them and they hit you, it always feels visceral and some actual real impact going on. I know it's basic 101 stuff for a combat system, but we don't even have that. So that's basically what we're doing. We're going to be improving the DLC with these extra animations, but all the time adding the features to the game engine. So in the future, if there's any more new melee DLCs going there, or you're making your own melee weapons, then you've got this extra advice in the guides and the game engine supporting you at the back end. And it's the lower hanging fruit. When we talk about improving gunplay, which is projectile weaponry and all these kind of things, there's a lot of work that we could still add to that. We've already talked about things like tracers and being able to see the arc of a grenade before you decide to throw it, and rocket launchers and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot more to do. And then of course the engagement. Melee is pretty easy because the character's right in your face. There isn't much the AI needs to think about running around because it has to run at you. Whereas with gunplay, characters could be running around all over the place taking cover. So that's a larger challenge. But I think if we can get, you know, there's a good chunk of games that will rely on this melee combat, and if we can get it good, dare I say get it great, then that means any games that you make that need this kind of combat system will feel enjoyable. Instead of it just point and shoot, point and hit, point and shoot, which is what we have at the moment. So keep an eye out for that progress. There'll already be planned some updates into the DLC, but you'll only be able to experience it when the next EXP build gets updated, because that'll be the version we have tested, happy with, and then we push it up as an EXP build. So those are the little demos that I wanted to showcase. There's a lot more going on in the community, and I wish I did have the time to edit like a showcase, just pull out like 10 or 20 of the best, coolest things going on in the community and just flash them, flashcard into the broadcast. But instead of all that, so I can focus on bug fixing, all you've really got to do is go into the Discord channel and just check out all the different categories, the work in progress, the media, the discussion points. And the community there happily are posting videos, screenshots, latest things that they're working on, and it really gives you a sense of how things are moving now. We're going beyond the stage of it's constantly broke, please fix 500 bugs, to a point where we can actually start pulling things together. It's actually going to start like a game maker soon. So that's that. Let's get on to some questions. I'm checking the clock. We're about 20 minutes in, which means we have about 40 minutes for questions, and I'm going to see if we can get into the Q&A screen. Okay, so as usual, we don't have a chat window because it doesn't find it, but I'm going to point it at that so you can see what we're looking at, and I'm going to size the window so you get the best possible view of the width, and if I can find the bottom of my window, the height. There you go, everyone can see that. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to scroll to the top, I'm going to find a question mark, and we're going to go down in order. Remember, you can keep asking questions up to the 11th hour, but after, if there's like less than 5 minutes left, then if you've still got a question outstanding, you may not get it answered this month. But you can certainly write it down and remember it and ask it next month. So we can go down and find the first question, and this is from Spicy Sausage. We put a question mark in for, do we send questions or showcases via Discord? Yes, Discord is the place to do it, because then you get to discuss it with the community first. There's no point holding questions and then firing them to me, and the questions that everybody knows the answer to. Best just to get the answers right away, and if everyone on Discord agrees only Lee knows the answer to that, then that's a fair enough question. And then you can email either me or any of the moderators, and they'll make sure that that question gets to me for the next broadcast. Okay, questions. Here's a big question from Duke229. Hey, I hope you are doing fine. Are there any news about custom grass and terrain in GameGuru Max, or will there be a grass overhaul? No news as such, however, as you've seen, we're doing the new project system, and it means we have to drill down into all of the files that we want to transfer from the stock stuff to the remote project area. And in that scrutiny, we are going to be looking at how much of that terrain are we copying across, how many of the grass textures and models are we copying across, and how many of the trees and the tree lod systems we're copying across. Because at the moment, we don't really want all of the terrain, grass and tree stuff if your game is set inside a building, for example. So yeah, that's going to be stage one, to see exactly what, when moved into the remote project area, you could then manually edit. Because once it's manually edited and then you load your project as a remote project, it'll pull from those files rather than the stock files. And that gives you the inkling of, I can now customize my terrain and I can now customize my grass. Obviously, most people who use GameGuru Max won't want to be messing around with files. They'll actually want it in the UI. So you can just say, select that texture, change it with this texture. And there is already features to do that. If I just quickly point that out, you'll actually see here, change texture folder. So there already is a way in which you can supply your own textures. And so that's sort of how it will probably look when we add it to the UI. I think the grass doesn't have such a facility, but you can imagine painting, terrain, trees and grass should all have a similar method of changing from stock to your own set of textures. And so we can make that nice and uniform. But stage one is, let's get all those files understood, separated into the remote project area, so we know which files we're dealing with. So there isn't any plans, i.e. a design of exactly how the UI is going to look, but we're marching in that direction. Stage one, just dealing with the back end. And if you don't want to wait for the UI, you can just change the files yourself. And if you like, we could create a small guide which describes what all the files do and what you can and can't change. So hopefully that gives you an answer. It's sort of like, we're going to start working on stuff like this. It's one of the last things, isn't it? You know, we've got so much we can customize now, but we still can't really customize grass and trees, which I imagine you'll want to do. Okay, question underneath from Extreme Strategy Showcase. Hey Lee, you're a bit quiet. I have my speakers turned up to 100% and I can kind of hear you, but you're very quiet, so could you please turn up your mic a bit? Okay, I'll tell you what, let's do a test. I have my Yeti microphone hovering above me, and I'm just going to have a quick look. I hope I don't break everything. If I break something, it's Extreme Strategy's fault. Right, there's some knobs I can twiddle, and one, it's upside down, so it says something like, I'm just going to, I'll tell you what, let's upside down it. Right, is it going to stay put? Yeah, there's two buttons, one called pattern and one called gain. Now I know a little bit about gain and I know nothing about pattern. So what I'm going to do, it's currently set at the halfway mark, I presume. I'm going to turn it one way, and I'm going to look at the end of the live chat, and it's either going to be quieter or louder. So I'm going to say turn it to the left, like that. So that is about 340 degrees rotated to the left. And does that make me sound quieter or louder? So that's the first test. Quieter or louder. And now I'm going to turn it back to where it was. So now it's back to where it was. This is the second setting. I've just realised I wasn't in the middle. This is actually the far right turny I can do it. So it was already set to either a minimum gain level or it was already set to a maximum gain level. So I'm going to scroll to the bottom for a second, hopefully I can find my place and see if that actually made any difference whatsoever. It should have done because it was a hardware gain modulation. Okay, so extremely quiet, quieter, quieter now, quieter, gone. Gain is the volume, that's right. Download, educate particle, oh that's another question. Good for me, louder, went quiet. Okay, so it looks like I already have my gain set to maximum, or what you would call volume. So should we play around with the patterns? So I'm currently set to sort of a D. It's upside down, so I know what it is. But I just set it to the first one. This is the first one, and I'll go through all four. What we was on up to now was the second one. So this is the first one. This is the second one. This is the third one. And this is the fourth one. So if you can tell me which of those was the loudest or the bestest. And in the meantime, I've set it back to the second one, which is what we was on, just in case the other three did very, very strange things. Isn't this fun? So, it's working well now, thank you. Louder after turning back to original. It was your voice going quietly, mate. Could have been. Third one is best. 3. Third was the loudest and most clear. Okay, let's switch to 3. So now I've set myself to 3, which I assume it's probably a better pattern. But this is what you've all asked for by popular vote. Everyone said 3, so it must be good. But maybe you could hear me because I was speaking as I was getting closer to the microphone. Nice. Okay, I'll take it that's a success. So in answer to the question, the answer was a fix live on air. Let's see if we can find where we was, because we had to scroll down quite a bit there. Okay, 100%. Oh, right, found. I'm up to me now. Right, here's a question. I'm thinking of making an animated series with GameGuru Max using 3D models created in Blender. Would that be possible? Most certainly. An animated series will be possible, and GameGuru Max is the ideal purchase to help you, because they've done all the hard work with camera dollies, character narration, moving around, all that kind of stuff you're going to need for an animated series. And yeah, don't be afraid to experiment. GameGuru Max isn't like a shooter maker anymore. It's really expanded into puzzles and role play and walking simulators and a little bit of VR. More to come on that. So yeah, experiment with an animated series. I've been thinking about a few projects myself that aren't really games at all, but is using the engine in other ways. So make something, put it on Discord, maybe a little video, ask people what they think, and if you can get encouragement, maybe carry on until you do have an animated series, and then sell it on Steam for $2.99 a pop. Okay, questions. Hoping the building tool works with AMD soon. Yeah, it's the fix has been done, but only for the main engine. That fix just hasn't been carried over to the building editor, but there's some other work that's going on in the building editor as well, so don't really want to release anything with and then break something in the process. It's related to the smart object system. But yeah, sorry about that. What you can do in the interim is go back to the AMD driver from 2023, March 2023. After that, AMD did something to their driver which messed up DirectX 11 stuff, at least the DirectX 11 we're using. But as a sort of get things running, just go back to that March 2023 AMD Adrenaline driver, and you should be able to run the building editor no problem. Okay, next question. This is from Blood Moon Interactive. Can the remote project folders be packed up and sent off to another developer? It certainly can. In fact, that's one of the aims of the new project system. Not only so you can zip up and back up, but you can zip up and send to your teammate who maybe want all the latest files and don't want to spend 2 hours reconstructing or buying DLC or whatever. If you've got a team and you're all working on the same game, yeah, makes perfect sense. That's why I've put mine on Dropbox, because I don't even need to zip up the folder and send it to someone. Someone just needs to have a Dropbox account. I can share that folder, and then that other person synchronizes all the files on their computer straight away. No zipping up required. And it worked almost right away. It works really well. So at one point we was going to write our own back-end server which allowed you to share projects in a cloud situation. Not necessary when you've got Dropbox and OneDrive and Google Drive and all these kind of things. Just make sure that your remote project is inside that folder hierarchy, and it will sync automatically. Very handy trick, that. Okay, question from Synchro62. Any chance we can have a way to go to default map like before? It was really handy going for a quick file load. Yeah, I didn't use that feature in 2 years. It's just, I was fixing a bug and someone said, if you do this and this and this, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. You can go straight to the level and skip the storyboard. I never envisaged, you know, everyone complained in Classic that, oh, it's just a glorified level editor because it didn't have a storyboard. So I put a storyboard in and everyone still wants the glorified level editor approach. I'll tell you what, Synchro, send me an email on how you would like to see that play out, because the reason you're not getting it now is I identified it as a bug because it's not something that I envisaged a lot of people would be doing. I assumed everyone would start by creating a project and then building up the storyboard and adding screens and all the rest of it. Having a level floating around in isolation just breaks my karma. So if you can sort of give me an idea of what's the best use case scenario for, like I said, jumping in and doing a quick thing with a level, maybe some sort of floating project, which isn't really a project, but still allows you the same idea of jumping straight into a level. So let me know, because I'm not going to unfix the bug, but maybe there's a better way we can offer that functionality. Okay, question. Oh, that's a question to all developers. I'm not a developer. If stored on cloud, just grant access to the Dropbox. Has there been, oh, here's a question from Duke229, has there been a good GameGuru Max game released yet? I am not aware of one. I think everybody is keeping their powder dry until GameGuru Max finally gets to that ultra solid, ultra fast, ultra bug-free status. And I think at that point some people will have the confidence to release their game, because there's a lot of users on Steam right now, so if you put out something out that's a bit unstable, you're going to have a lot of complaints. So maybe everyone's just waiting until he says, I think it's good enough to release a game on Steam. Right now we have, I think it's 38 bugs in the issues board. That means your game's going to have somewhere in it 38 bugs. Do you really want to release your game with 38 bugs in it? Exactly. Okay, and Synchro62 has another question. On testing the project system, I accidentally created a standalone in the project folder and both worked! Exclamation. I was able to run the standalone and load the project. Should this be avoided? Let me read that again. On testing the project system, I accidentally created a standalone in the project folder. Oh, I see. Yeah, so you've put the standalone inside your remote project folder and both worked. Well, I imagine they would. I was able to run the standalone and load the project. Should this be avoided? I think yes, definitely avoided. Reason is your standalone folder has duplicate copies of everything in your project folder. So you can see the mirror looking into a mirror looking into a mirror situation where you've got an increasingly larger project folder with lots of duplicates of standalones inside standalones inside standalones, or projects inside standalones. Well, you get the idea. I would definitely keep your standalones as a temporary build folder. So you basically just dump them out somewhere, because they're always going to get out of date. You know, every time you make a change, that standalone folder doesn't mean anything anymore. You may as well delete it and then do a new export. So yeah, I would have it avoided, and maybe even the software can detect that you're trying to put standalone inside the project and then not let you do it. So if anyone else says, no, we absolutely want that feature, let me know, and how you would it look in the software. Okay, Retro Game Block. Will there be options for FSR and such in the game menu as well? That's a good idea. In fact, let me just get rid of this character because he's going to keep trying to attack me. You're gone. Okay. So you see this here. What a wonderful number of graphics and performance and post-processing. I imagine there is a large group of community members who want all of this inside the in the game menu, which really just consists of low, medium, and high from the 1990s, and the FSR, which is now newly added to this, is just the latest edition. But I can expand that question to, can we not have all of this? And I think you should. I think you should have the ability to have all of these exposed, and even for you to configure what high, medium and low should mean to your game. Every game's going to be different. I think you need that level of granularity. The way I think it will be implemented, because we don't really want to be hard coding stuff anymore, is inside, this is for anyone who's just joining us into the wonderful world of GameGuru Max. This is the storyboard editor, and each of these represents a screen inside your game. And the menu we're talking about is when you have a standalone and you press escape, it shows up this menu where you can load a save game, you can save your position, graphic settings, sound settings and controls. Graphic settings, when you select it, goes to this wonderful screen. So I think the solution is these buttons are just the defaults, but then you can add your own extra controls, and then your drop down, so let's select this one, you get a drop down which basically says what is it supposed to do. You'd have some sort of control here where you can select a property from the graphics and performance and profile and post-processing in order to then connect that data so it's settable and readable from this gadget. I think that's the way we do it. Rather than try and hard code or like an FSR button in the corner. I think we're missing a trick there. So if you want to kind of flesh that out on the community's behalf and create a feature request that kind of follows that idea, and then send me a link to that issue so I can tag it properly and maybe add some of my own thoughts as well. But yeah, that's basically how it's going to materialize. But eventually it's going to be super essential for people to be able to have that level of control if they're going to take the game that they've just bought on Steam seriously, and they want to be able to control the graphics like any other game that they play on Steam. So yeah, good question. Looking for another question that I don't want to skip past any good question. Here we go. That crazy Viking, can you block his swings? And I think we're assuming the demo that we show with the character swinging the sword, that's what is happening. He swings his sword, and as he swings it towards you, and you block, you do your block animation at the right time, he interferes with the rest of his attack, and then it switches to a stumble animation. And during that stumble animation, you can then run in and then stab him. So that's one way around. The other way around is they can block you. So you're going in with your broadsword, you're swinging it in, and then the enemy, if he's got the correct animation, will be able to either dodge or block your attack, and you get stunned. And so whilst you're stunned, that enemy can then run in and finish you off or get an extra hit in. So that's the idea of the first version of the new melee combat system. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, that was much needed. Thanks. Yeah, I agree. I think combat is kind of going to be the meat of a lot of people's games, and so it needs to be at least decent. Extreme Strategy Showcase. Will the block feature, can shields be made, or a shield sword combo? Super cool feature though. If you was a talented technical artist, you could do that right now with this new blocking system. As you noticed, the long sword just pushes the sword in front of you, and that's the block. But your animation could actually be you're carrying a shield on your left arm, and that's your block animation, and raise that and it'll be exactly the same functionality. And you can control that animation starting point, the point at which blocking is effective within that animation, and then the end of the animations where the block's put back down. At the moment it uses the style similar to Fallout 4, where you can't hold yourself in a block position forever. It's just a timing thing, which is a bit more fun than just constantly blocking and running forward. Gives a bit more of a dynamic to the gameplay. I dare say down the road some people will want, I want to hold up my defences and leave it there. I think Dark Souls did something like that. But let's just get this first version done and fun, and then we can say we can embroider the edges of the system and make it more flexible. Or ideally, hand that job over to the community and let them play around with the scripts and the other stuff, because as I said, we're not going to really hard code anything if we can avoid it. Okay, and super cool feature, thank you very much. Yeah, and you can thank Mark Bosser entirely. I just saw an opportunity to add a little bit of fun gameplay with all these cool animations. I think we'll all agree his weapons DLC is top draw, absolutely top draw. Okay, soon enough we will have war battles. Well, you have to wait a bit longer for that. And yeah, Jedi Force, deflecting lasers. Okay, and I think this is the question from KMCTV. I'm thinking about making an animated series with GameGuru. Have I already been to it? Am I having deja vu here? Yeah, see previous answer. Or maybe it was just posted twice. Mesmerize. Will we ever see the ability to import GG classic characters into Max? They all have so much charm, and they are entirely and utterly different than Max. There were some deficiencies in the GameGuru classic characters. They were built of separate parts. The head was separate from the rest of them. And for GameGuru Max, we had the opportunity to do a complete rewrite of the character system. Something that allowed you to change more parts of the character, weld them all together as a single object, improve the animations and the textures and lip syncing and all the extra stuff, and detaching the animations from the characters, all of that good stuff. But because of those innovations, we've left the GameGuru classic characters far behind. But in answer to your question, technically you can. It would require a bit of fudging, and there won't be a patch on the new characters in GameGuru Max. So I would say yes, you technically could fudge it, but you may as well just use GameGuru Max and then plea and beg to third-party character artists to create more character body parts, and then you get your cake and eat it. A character that basically can follow script behaviors, do all the animations, share resources, and eventually expand into every kind of character and theme and style and era. And so we have a full selection of characters to build. I think that's probably the where we focus in terms of resources. But yeah, I mean, there is already information out on Discord which shows you how to. In fact, I was reading the GameGuru Max forums, and I think that's right at the top. There's one of the posts right at the top, which I think provides a link on how you can get started doing that. Okay, and the question from Paul Walker is, any update on using the particle system? The particle system with weapons. I think flaming swords, tracer rounds, or even magic medieval fantasy games are limited to melee only at present. You know what? I think we're getting very close to that. There's no actual plans. There's nothing in the works. Nothing being tested. But as you've seen, we're working on the melee, and I'm not really happy with the blood splat. Nor am I happy with how weapons hit things, because in both instances using these flat decals that look really rubbish in VR, and we should be using proper particles for those. So that would be stage one, or stage half, to actually start the process of ripping out all the decal stuff and putting in the particle stuff. So you can then imagine, once we have a particle system in play during combat, first for the character, then for the weapon, then it's not a big stretch to then extend that to like tracers and other effects that are tied to both character and weapon. So yeah, we're making very slow progress in that direction, but just going about it in a rather circuitous route. How about a better, more in-depth tutorial of the particle editor? For anyone who doesn't know, and I appreciate you probably know this because you said a better one, there is a tutorial, a little one, I don't know how long it lasts, from the hub, the tutorials particle editor, and it shows you very basically how to Find the particle editor, create a simple particle, export it, locate it in GameGuru Max, drop it into your level, and bask in all its glory. But the particle editor is such a big tool. It would take a lot of tutorial, probably a guide all by itself, really. But let me just go into my fish lake. I created this level only this morning to test a bug. Well, for anyone who's interested, if you have a standalone that has fish, and you load a saved game position and your fish was spinning around and acting weird, it's because the collision state wasn't properly restored. That's now been fixed in the dev test build, and we'll soon come to the EXP build, so you don't have to worry about that. As you can see, I've been testing my fish out. But for anyone who needs to know, the particle editor is discoverable under the edit file menu, edit menu, particle editor. And as I was saying, look at all these controls. I mean, you've got particle generation, particle types, turbulence, vector fields. Now, I must point out, again, TDC didn't write this. This was the product of Gabardines, and only he knows the mysteries of the particle editor. So if you got his email address, or you can contact him and you can ask him very nicely, maybe he'll do a video tutorial, or someone who's really enthusiastic about particles, maybe they could do a video, and then we can add it to the next build of GameGuru Max. Now, I don't is there a manual? I keep thinking there was a manual, a particle editor user guide. There was one. Like, so this tells you all the deets. So you've got all of the different functions, and the good stuff is towards the end. Now, you can imagine if we actually did a video tutorial that went down this user guide, it would be enormous. It would be a 5-hour video, and maybe it needs to be a series of video tutorials. So if anyone wants to pick up that challenge, be more than welcome to assist, and then eventually put it into GameGuru Max, maybe on the YouTube channel, maybe on your own YouTube channel, something like that. I'm going to still stick to what I know best, which is fixing bugs and occasionally making them. But yeah, that's I've lost my message, I've lost my chat box. I'll find it. Yeah, so yeah, it's a good idea. If anyone wants to see more video tutorials, talk about it on Discord, and if it gets a lot of upvotes, maybe we can make it happen by hook or by crook. Okay, J Birdmax asks, seems the longer I work on a level, the more bugs start rearing their heads. I upload my levels on GitHub to show the bugs, but everything works fine on the other end. I gave up several months ago. Yeah, that's often the case. All of the bugs that have been fixed are usually the bugs that hit you in the first couple of hours on a fresh project. For those who persist and their projects now become month projects and 6-month projects, then you're going into the weeds and you find those really hard to find bugs and even harder to reproduce. It's the reproducing that's the king. Fixing bugs is usually very quick. It's reproducing them. So it's really just a case of corner the bug in such a way that your steps, there's no possible way the bug can hide itself. So it's basically this brute force method of, I have found a guaranteed way to show you the bug. Document that, put it on the issues board, and if all the evidence is there and it can be reproduced quickly, it'll be fixed very quick, and then it goes out into a dev test and they can check it out. But yeah, there will be a lot of bugs left. The 38 bugs I mentioned earlier, that's not all the bugs left in the engine, it's just the ones that have been reported in such a way that they can be reproduced, are a good chunk of them. But the ones that are deeper in the weeds, yeah, you could be working on a game project for a year and then only then find a certain bug. There was a game recently, the bug was the scroll bar wouldn't show up in the inventory after 36 items were collected. So you can imagine you have to have built a game that had 36 items to collect in the first place before that bug even showed up. Now, the scroll bar did show up when you had 38 items in the inventory, but not 37, which is when you want it to happen. Tiny little bug, but very hard to reproduce unless you've actually got far along in your game project. But I'm really sorry that you had to give up. Bugs can be terrible sometimes. And this was the section in the live chat where we had to play around with Lee's microphone. And we hit on the magic number 3, and now we're back to nice. Okay, let's look for some nice, lovely questions. Use loop sound rather than a play sound. Loop sound will loop the sound over and over. Play sound will just play the sound once. GameGuru will be essential for an animated series. I agree. Yeah, good correction. GameGuru Max. There's two. The GameGuru for GameGuru Classic, and then a lot of it, a big chunk of it, was rewritten for GameGuru Max, so it's compatible with all of Max's goodies. So yeah, don't get those two confused. Okay, I think there's a question here from Mr. Quentin. I'm not sure if this has been addressed recently. Will the Wicked engine be updated to current anytime soon? I assume you mean the Wicked engine we're using, updated to the Wicked engine that is the latest version from Janos. Not likely, not for any time soon anyway. The Wicked engine, I think it was over a year ago. Yeah, it was over a year ago. An attempt was made to move it from DX11 to DX12, and there were so many things that broke, largely centered around the stuff that we modified, like the procedural terrain system, the grasses and the trees and lots of other things, that it looked like it was going to be like a 6-month hiatus of nothing happening to actually complete that work. So I made the brave decision to stick with DX11 and get that super solid. At least then when we do move to DX12, we leave behind a very rock solid DX11, which will prosper for many, many years on those old Windows 10 systems we remembered back in the day. But yeah, the latest Wicked engine from Janos is looking absolutely awesome. Lots of performance work, lots of graphics improvements, a switch of physics engine, terrain, procedural terrain. When we grabbed the Wicked engine, there was no procedural terrain. Now there's procedural terrain, there's grass that moves in the wind, you got a nice tree system. The list goes on. So yeah, it's very tempting to think we can just drop it in and then press a big compile button and all is well. I'm afraid that's not going to be the case. To rip out a DX11 engine and drop in the 12 one, like I said, minimum 6 months of nothing else happening, probably a year. So the benefit is there, but then do you want to have a year where you're not going to get any fixes or any kind of activity, at least from the official team? Well, that's a big question. Some people would say yes. I wonder how many would say no. Finish what you started. Okay, and a follow-up. Without updating to DX12, which the later version of Wicked uses, this can't be done. Exactly. We'd have to move to DX12 because they dropped the DX11 one. $100 to upload a game on Steam. Yeah, I think it was $99 or $99.99. Basically $100. But yeah, they've stopped the idea of vetting for green light. Anyone can put anything on Steam. But Steam community can be pretty brutal, so if you are going to put something on Steam and sell it, make sure it's good. Make sure it really responds to the users you're targeting and does a decent job of it. Okay, just a little bit of friendly advice, having a lot of experience with Steam reviews recently. And the questions roll on, oh, do they? Oh yes, another one from J Burmax. Oh no, it's just following up. Maybe there's a question at the end. Some hole in the wall, clothing store, shirt shop, no. I'm not sure that's a question. Here's one from T-Bone. Possible for grenades and rockets in GameGuru Max. Physics-based projectiles. Yeah, that's supported right now. I don't think we have any weapons for rockets, but we do have one for grenade. So check out the grenade. It's physics-based. It's a projectile of a sort, and you can throw it, and you can play around with the gun spec and change the graphics and the textures and start from there. But yes, all of the things you'd want: shooting bullets, shooting rockets, throwing grenades, hitting someone over the head with a stick with a nail in it. All that stuff is supported right now in the engine. Any chance we might get a proper debugger app? There are no plans to do a debugger app in GameGuru Max at this time. But if you want to go into some details on what that might look like, are we talking about a Lua script syntax debugger? Are we talking about more details than you currently get? Just show you what we currently have. Is these. So basically you can see all of the different stats, but that's really just to help with performance and make sure that you're only rendering what you wanted to render. And obviously you've got your settings on the right where you can switch things on and off. And the behaviors editor which not many people are using because it is still quite program arty. That does have a debugger in it, which shows you the current instruction in yellow when it flashes down all your behaviours. In fact, do we have time? Oh, actually, look at that. We're nearly at the end of the hour. Boy, have I been talking today. But I'll show you anyway. I'll start so I finish. You've got this character like this. I'm going to make sure I'm not too close. And then I'll run the game. He is going to hit me, isn't he?
There?
Yeah.
Contact.
Okay. Right.
Anyone
So
there?
we pick him.
Contact.
He's going to kill me.
Anyone
But
there?
this is it. So this guy is actually using the behavior editor system to run his logic. So you can see this little yellow. That's actually the current instruction. So it fires off the instruction, next cycle, the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one. And basically you can follow all the logic that he has to go through to run towards you and stab you with a dagger. See, there's quite a lot of logic that's needed for even simple tasks. And now he's in his idle state, just bouncing around here. So you've got basic debugging stuff, but if you think there needs to be something more specific or targeted, best place is probably the GitHub issues board, and then email me the link so I can tag it and make some corrections or maybe some additions as well. But yeah, I'm not averse to making game making easier, and if debugging visuals is a way of doing that, happy days. Okay, no question marks until we get to spicy sausage. Any plans to add a way back to cut into or manipulate the terrain mesh so we can create concave geo features? Yeah, it's a basic terrain system, isn't it? What you're asking for is sort of like, not quite a voxel, but yeah, you want to be able to sort of pull up a terrain and then wrap it around like a 3D modeler. All you get with GameGuru Max is the up and down. We do it for performance. We can get quite a lot of terrain for our money if we stick to this type of geometry. If you wanted to create like cave systems and stuff, what most people do, they dig a big hole, fill it with lots of cave details, and then put a lot of rocks on top. Instant cave. It's an old technique, but it's a tried and tested technique. Usually works. So I've just, like I said, we're getting to the end of there. I know some people think 1 hour is too long, so I'll pick 2 more quick questions and then we'll call it a day, and then you'll have to save up your questions for the last Saturday in July. So we can find a question mark without going all over the crazy. Here we go. Oh, is this another one from Spicy Sausage? I think it is. Speaking of Fallout 4, I like the caves where you have the main overworld and can enter and return to positions with the search. Is this capability planned? No, there are no plans to create a cave maker. Bethesda took a long time and used it for a lot of their games, that cave system, and it's going to take a lot of work to recreate something like that. So no plans to do a cave system. Maybe someone in the community does. I don't think there's any reason why someone else couldn't do it, and then we can add it into the GitHub, the GitHub repository and make it part of GameGuru Max in the future. And the last question is from James H. Quietly whispers, any nearer to multiplayer being at least at the distant horizon? You know what? Could we not get through a single live broadcast without the subject of multiplayer popping up? There are no plans in the short or long term to add multiplayer to GameGuru Max as far as I'm aware. Maybe someone in the community gets sick and tired of that stock response and they'll write it themselves. But yeah, thanks for keeping up the tradition of asking about multiplayer at least once per month. So that's it for this time. I'm going to now wait for 30 days for more things to happen in the community, for pre-questions to be posted to me, to get some new things together so I can demonstrate and showcase some stuff. And then once again answer many questions that you may have for me. So it'll be the last Saturday of July, can't tell you which date that falls on, at 7 PM British summertime BST. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for fixing my microphone, and I will be with you all in about 30 days time. So until then, I shall bid you adieu.